Overcoming the 3 most common investor fears when you meet with them as you're going through this 45 days and as you meet a couple of times. These are the 3 big fears you need to come over when you're doing your private money pitch, okay? This is them. Number 1, fear number 1, the biggest fear that they've got, losing their principal, okay? Fear number 1 is losing their principal. It's one thing to not make money. It's quite another thing to lose money. Okay, you talk to any investor, their biggest fear, okay, if we go into an investment and I don't make as much as I thought I was going to make, that's one thing. Losing money, it's game over, right? So we want to make sure that we overcome that objection by explaining to them the ways that they're protected, which is some of the things we talked about in due diligence and the insurance and the things we talked about last month as far as getting title insurance, giving them a note and mortgage. You'll have to go back to that module and listen to that PowerPoint to get that. But number 1, you got to take away the fear they're going to lose their principal. Fear number 2, lost opportunity cost. Their number 1 fear is losing money, but number 2, it's losing the opportunity of whatever they're plugged into, okay? And this is why when you're going through these 3 touches, when you're going through these 45 days, when you go through these meetings with them in order to establish relationships, it's important to find out what they're plugged into now. Okay, what are the rates of return that they're getting now? And I guess you probably make this presentation a lot, Eddie, in your business. I don't know how you raise funds for your private money, but when you're raising these funds, it's important that you understand what do they consider an improvement over where they're at now, right? Because that's going to be the way you craft your deal and the opportunities that you give them. If right now they're in a CD at 1 to 2%, this might be the holy grail person that if you can give them some security, you're going to give them 8 to 10%, annualized rate of return. They're happy. If they're making more than that, or if they have to unplug that investment from something that's doing well, or there may be some fees to it, or whatever the case may be, they're probably going to look for equity participation in a kind of a renovation where they're going to want to split it. Fear number 3 is they don't want to become a victim of fraud. They do not want to end up on an episode of American Greed, okay? That is one of their biggest fears, okay? They've watched the show over and over again, and they're terrified that you're some guy. So they've heard over and over, if somebody promises you 25% returns, it is definitely a scam, which it's not definitely a scam, okay? Because I've done plenty of deals where my partners have made 25% annualized rates of return on their investment with me. However, it scares people off, okay? And so you want to make sure you understand their risk tolerance and that you also don't make it too pie in the sky. So again, that comes into, you want to improve on what they're getting, but you don't want to improve too much because you may create too much fear, especially if you don't have a strong relationship with them. And that's the key. If you have a strong relationship with them, it's a different story. If you're just kind of going through a 45-day and they barely know you and you met them through a luncheon, you got to be very cautious the way you make the presentation. Okay?